and something else that you could be used as an admin assistant or just a helpful tool to use in your school. So as we go through this, if you have questions or maybe the link doesn't work, I've gone through and I've double checked all of the links, but want to make sure that you have access to these. So before you use these, what you'll want to do is just make a copy, save it to your own Google Drive, and then you can use those documents or those forms anytime that you want. So I've kind of put them out there, but you have to have the link only, so you can use the link down here. The other thing that I found, which is fantastic, is I was putting this PD together for some administrators in our district, and I was like, there's got to be a cheat sheet somewhere that shows all the hotkeys and just where everything is. And so as I was started to create that, I started to look online and I found one. And it's a whole company that basically creates cheat sheets for all of the Google apps, Microsoft apps, Zoom, different things like that. So if you click up here, I've linked to the PDF on my website. The company is called Custom Guide. And so what they actually do is they go through and they create these custom guides for businesses, schools, whatever. And you can actually purchase these from the company and reuse them and share them. But it's amazing. And each one of these links is a hyperlink, and you can go watch the tutorial on that. So if you go to customguide.com, they have a bunch of them there. I've just linked this one on my website. So I should probably link all of them there. But so want to jump in. This Zoom recording obviously is not live. That's something that we had previously. So when we jump into forms, you need to understand that anytime you create a form, you'll have an attached sheet. And that sheet will collect all of your data or your data. And each row and column has specific pieces of information attached with the Google form. So depending on how you set up your Google form, usually each question is a spot in your sheet. And so when you're filling those out on the back end, you want to look at how do you want to use the data on the back end of your sheet, right? So if you're collecting attendance for, whether it's faculty meeting or a field trip or, whatever it is that you're collecting attendance for, you want to make sure that on the back end, that data is set up the way that you want. So it has dates, first name, last name, maybe the event that you want. Maybe you actually want to have a tab that shows, what time that person came to the event. Were they late? Were they on time? So there's a lot of different things that you can add to the form and the sheet to make it what you want. And in reality, you can do anything that you want. There's a lot of people, Alice Keeler's created plugins for the forms and the sheets that'll do things. We're going to go over Autocrat today. There's also Certify them. There's Avery mail labels that you can create. So if you're, in an office and that you can use all of those tools. So I'll be kind of just jumping through some of the things that I use it for and what you could use it for in the classroom to be more productive, to save you time, energy, frustration, all those things. So one of the things I love about being in a new school is getting information from new teachers and finding out all the things that we need to find out about them. So our SIS system has a lot of information about what, where the teacher lives, the phone number, emergency contact, but it doesn't have all that other stuff that we need to know about our teachers. And specifically, if you're a teacher, right, what this means for you and your students. And so what I did as a teacher, when I had a new year, I would have my students fill out a Google form, and I'd like to have them answer some questions, and we would do an activity surrounding it. But the idea of this is to have information that you can use later during the holidays. Maybe it's their birthday, different things like that. So this form that I'm going to click on here it's a new hire form. So it's a form that we created whenever we have a new teacher hire to our building. And so we kind of get the basic information: email, a home email address, last name, first name, preferred nickname, right? So if their name's, Tiffany and they want to go by Tiff, or Spencer and they want to go by Spence, or Charles or Richard, whatever. They can put that there. We gather their full address, zip code, all of that information there. Then we have their role in the school, right? So as a teacher, maybe you have a class presidency, right? Maybe that rotates every week. Maybe it's a job board. It doesn't really matter what that is. We ask specific questions about, do they have their ed tech endorsement? Are they ESL endorsed? Do they have, an ALPS or a gifted and talented endorsement? And a lot of times we can find that on our state website, but our state website is kind of clunky and it's hard to find that information. So then what we do is we get into the details about the student or the teacher or the staff member. I want to know if they have any allergies, right? And normally parents will tell you that information, but sometimes, they don't. And so the reason that we want this is if we're bringing food into the classroom, if we're having a faculty meeting and I'm ordering stuff for our whole staff, I want to have that information so that I know what to order for them. And then we get some of their other information. So we get their favorite candy, their favorite soda, their shirt size. And, as a teacher in the classroom, when I would do this and I wanted to celebrate a student for doing a great job or something like that, I could then either, get the candy or get the soda or get a shirt from the school, and I would have all of that correct. So when I gave that to the student, it fit them and it's what they wanted, right? Again, I'm using this for staff right now, but it helps me know, who's on HPs, who's on Macs, who's on Surface Pros or whatever. It's just a good way to track information. So on the back end, all of that, right? And this is a copy of a copy, so you won't have the responses here. But on the back end, I now have a list of all of my students, all of my staff, my team, whatever it is, and all of their favorite candies, sodas, drinks, shirt size, emergency contact, all in one quick document that I can access anytime that I want to. So I have that. So that's a great example of that. So the next one down obviously is more for students. And we're talking about field trips, any kind of activity where the students are going to be leaving the building and I need their information. This is an example that we use on a field trip. So our school uses this on a regular basis. Anytime we go on a field trip, we use this not only as a tracking sheet, but as a permission form. So we send this out to parents. We ask parents, we give all the details when we're going to pick up, when we're going to drop off. When the parents sign this with a timestamp, that's our kind of approval that the students have been given permission to go on this field trip. But it also, right, it's a multi-use document. So then I have an emergency contact, right? So if the bus breaks down, if we have an accident, if, a student has an allergic reaction or a seizure or different things like that, I have the parent's phone number right there on one Google Sheet. I don't have to go back into my SIS system and look through the whole thing. It's just right there. So we use this, right, for field trips, and this is an ever-changing document. So you can make a copy of this and use it in your own classroom or your own school. The next one is registration. So we have moved over to this, probably 2 or 3 years ago. Our SIS system will do a little bit for us, but because of the situation that we're in and we're taking students from 13 different schools, it doesn't really work with our SIS system. And so we created a Google form, which allows students to register for school and select the courses that they would prefer to take. So as I go through this form, this is a conditional form, and we'll talk more about conditional forms a little bit later, which means if a student answers a certain way to a certain question, it takes them down a different path in the Google form. Google form pathways, I think some people call it A/B choice selection. There's a lot of different names for it, but it's basically a contingency question where we can start to filter out students or families or people that are asking a certain question. And I can show you what this looks like. If I go into edit, excuse the camera while I move out of the way of my second screen. So for example, if a student answers or a parent answers a certain way on a certain question, it will jump down to a separate section of the document. So what would this look like? Maybe you have a combined class of 7th and 8th graders, and there's an assembly coming up that's only for 8th graders. You ask the first question, are you a 7th grader or an 8th grader? If they answer 7th grader, then it takes them to this part of the form. If they answer 8th grade, it goes to this part of the form. So what that question will be like right here. So when they answer this specific question, it will take them to a different section. And these are all the sections on this Google form that you'll have access to. You can make a copy and do whatever you want. But it's just a great way to disaggregate the data on the back end so you don't have to do it on the front end. And one of the beautiful things, right, that I've seen teachers do, and I'll pull this example up on the fly, is I have a math teacher that created an auto kind of grading form that would give students answers to math questions in the form. So they weren't correcting every single document that was going through. So if I pull this up, you can see here that if they answer the question right or wrong, they go to a different section depending on what that question is or how they answer that question. So for example, 3 minus 8, right? If I select the wrong answer, it takes me to kind of a reteaching moment or a revisualization moment of what I got wrong. And so it's a great way for you to kind of, instead of doing all the grading, have some auto grading, give some immediate feedback, specifically if you're working in an environment where you're assigning stuff as homework and students aren't there. And they've also, this specific example, I've seen them where they have videos and the teacher is actually explaining in the video what the student may or may not have done wrong to get that wrong answer, depending on how they put it together. So that's another great way to use kind of those split forms there. So I'm going to change the view a little bit so we can, there we go, get a little bit bigger screen. So the next form that I've sent you is an admin log meeting. I think this is super important. I've shared this before, is that whether you're a teacher, an administrator, adult in the building, you should track conversations that you're having with kids. I just think that we're at the point where not only ethically, legally, but when information comes in that students share with us or we're meeting with parents, it's nice to have a log of what happened during that meeting, right? Whether it's an IEP, a 504, a regular parent meeting, a phone call home. And depending on how your district and your state runs, is all of the information that we save connected with our Google Drive, right, is access. The state has access. People can do grammar requests for that information. So anything that I want to keep personal, I keep in my own personal notebook as far as a, job performance kind of review myself on what's happening. And so I do that with a Google form, and I actually have it right up here in my favorites. So if I open a new window and it's MCML, which is Mr. Campbell's meeting log, I just have this here, first name, last name, child's name, right? And then I have what grade or what their role is. So if I'm meeting with teachers, I do this as well. Now that I'm a principal, I track every meeting that I have with teachers. If there's some feedback or correction that I need to, put in place, I document that in case I ever need it later. Reason for the meeting, and then a digital witness statement. At one point, I was actually having students fill out this document, and then I would have it, the information searchable, right? So as an assistant principal, there's a lot of things happening in the building at any given time or in your classroom. So I would actually have the student just fill out the Google form and tell me, oh, Susie did this or Johnny did this or whatever in the lunchroom. And then that's also searchable in my sheet on the back end. So I could actually go in and search that information based on any of the students' names that are put in that information. And you can actually print that out and have the kids sign it. So it was a great way for me to track who I was meeting with, when I met with them, because everything in Google Forms is timestamped, which is beautiful, and to go through there. So the other thing I think that's super helpful with Google Forms is ordering information. Depending on what you're ordering, I think, if you're doing shirts for students, if you're doing food for students, if you're doing treats, if you're doing, any kind of stickers, buttons, whatever it is in your classroom, that you are having students order, that you're going to be getting different pieces of information, you could put it on. And the beautiful thing about forms is you can actually put in images. So this is a form that we created a couple years ago. We had a 25th anniversary at a school, and we had these two different shirts. It was, a black shirt and a gray shirt, and teachers could pick which one they wanted and their size. So, and then we just sent that in that order form and got everything taken care of that way. So some other things that you can do, which I don't have examples that I can share with you, is any kind of school-wide voting, faculty voting, student body officer voting, classroom voting. Maybe it's the end of year and you're watching or you're going to read some poetry or some children's books or whatever it is. And the students, you can have them vote on whatever one they want. There's other ways to do voting, but Google Forms is great too. You could actually do a Google chat, just a thumbs up, thumbs down, option 1, option 2 thing. We use it a lot as far as staff and school to find out, what people want for lunch. As an assistant principal, we did school-wide voting through SBOs. And the beautiful thing is you can collect people's emails. So, if people are voting that are outside of the school, you can run with your, ISS or your IS system, your SIS system, and match which students are in your school to which students have voted. So it's a great way to work through that. The big one that I've shared before is teacher appreciation notes. This is actually a whole process that we've done. It turned out absolutely amazing. So the original form that we had about 3,000 responses between students, parents, and family members. So we sent this form out to our community, and I've done this twice now. We sent this form out to our community, and we started it during COVID, but we've kept it since then, and we work with our PTSA to do this. So we send the form out. What we do is we ask the students and parents to share a quick note, a positive note about a teacher. So what you can see here is I have a list of all the teachers, staff members, aides, assistant principals, counselors, everybody in the building that we had. We wanted them to be recognized for the work that they were doing. So when the students look at it, they go through, they fill out the information here, they click on a teacher, they share a little note, and then all of those notes were saved on a spreadsheet. And again, we had like 3,000 of them. So our PTSA, and we had some teacher volunteers help out. We went through and filtered through all the comments to make sure, there wasn't anything, negative and hurtful. And then I'll just show you here on this sheet, right? It would pull this information, and we would take this column right here, this leave a note of appreciation, and we pulled all of this text, alphabetized the information by teacher, pulled all of the text, threw it into a Google document, and then rearranged that Google document to print out on Avery label size paper, right? So we had 8 basically comments per page. Then our PTSA and our parent volunteers cut them all up, punched holes in the corner of them, put them in a little keychain, and sent them home for Teacher Appreciation Week. And some one year they laminated them, one year they didn't. That's what we did learn from that. But so the teachers were able to get a key ring with some of them hundreds of comments from students, because students went through multiple times and selected multiple teachers. We had parents, fill out the form and share. It was a phenomenal experience. And it's something that we did year over year. So I think another one connected with that is gathering videos or images for end of year slideshows. So it's right down here at the bottom. And I did this as a teacher. I was the one that usually put the slideshow together at the end of the year. So students can actually add files here, and I can limit what kind of file I wanted. And so we would have the kids send in videos or images. And this works better for, students that have phones. Beautiful thing again is, right, it's connected to their email. So any email that collects it, we know where that image is coming from. So we didn't get anything inappropriate or anything like that. And it was great because we got photos that we would not have gotten otherwise for our end of year slideshow and memory book or a yearbook, because the students were sending in the pictures. So we had some students that were in the play, and they, had some stuff backstage where they got some pictures on their phone and these little videos, and the assemblies backstage, and some of the kids that were in, played high school sports as a 9th grader, they went up, they got pictures, or their parents got pictures that we weren't able to get because we were not at those events. They shared those, and we were able to put all of those things into the end of year slideshow and the memory book. So when you're collecting those photos and images from students, you want to make sure obviously that they're appropriate, but you can select the minimum file size that you want. So, we said the maximum is 1 GB. So we don't want them sending in videos that are more than 2 minutes. And the images that they're sharing, you can see right here, they can share up to 5 images. It's just a great way to collect information for slideshows and videos to the end of the year. And it minimizes the time for the teacher or the administrator that's putting all of that together at that moment in time. And then all of those are saved in a drive folder. So instead of having to go out and check my email and, this drive, or this teacher that got this from this student, it's all in one central drive. You grab all of those, you download them to your computer, and then you put them in your slideshow, however you're using your slideshow, whether it's Google Slides or if you're putting it together in a video, it's all there in one place. So it's a huge time saver to collect that information. You can also do the same thing for memory books or yearbooks. When you're getting those candid photos of kids throughout the year, you can just go that route and have all those extra photos along with any of the photos that your student, your memory book team is putting together, the teachers that you have. So it's a great way to save you time, energy, put all those there. And again, this is linked. You can make a copy of this and use that later. So as we go back to the different types of forms, that's the link right there, the end of your slideshow link that I just showed you that was there. Next one is a room scheduler. We have multiple shared rooms in the school that I'm in, and we share rooms. And so we have a scheduler. So I put together a Google form. People fill it out. They put their start time, end time, date in that document. And so you can see here just has the rooms that we're a part of, the day, the time, the end. And then I can go through and actually put that on Google Calendar, and those rooms get scheduled in Google Calendar, and it adds the room, stuff like that. So you can do surveys, anonymous or not. The beautiful thing about Google Forms is when we create a Google form, we're going to start from scratch right now, right? Google form, we want to, I'll show you, this is beautiful because if you actually send this out through email, it will track responses depending on if people have responded or not and answered your form. So, the other thing we've seen recently with updates is Google now has updated. You can change the text and the color of the font. This is something that I've shared last week, as it's now available. We can share, different parts of the font and what we want it to say. And as we're going through and filling this out, I'm just going to add one question to save time in this presentation. But if I want to go to a section based on a different answer or shuffle the options, so if I'm using this in the classroom as a quiz, this is where I would change that, right? And so I pull this off and I'm going to send this, right? I want to send this to a group of people. You'll have the option to send via email, send via link. If you send via link, it's just going to be an open link that people can fill out the form for. But if I send it via email to a specific person and I include the form in the email, and I'll show you when I send this. So I'm going to send this. In my inbox, I will get the form in my email. And you've probably gotten this before. This isn't anything new on the front end, right? So when I click on this here, I have this information here that I can just answer, option 1. And what you'll notice is I'm not actually going to fill this out. So I'm going to put this as mark unread, right? And so this cheat sheet looks like I need to share that. We'll do that in a minute. When I go back here and I click on responses, right, I'm waiting for responses, and I can actually select get an email notification for new responses, select response destination, and that's fine. It'll let me know when somebody's responded. But when I go to questions or I go to preview this, when I go to send this, it will say who has responded and who hasn't responded. So when I go to the form and I don't have any responses yet, right? It says waiting for responses. it will say, do you want to resend this out to those who haven't responded? And I can say yes, and it'll automatically resend the form to those emails. So if it's a student email or a parent email or a teacher email, and you're trying to collect data or information on something, and you have 5 or 6 teachers that haven't responded, well, you can say, hey, I need you to respond by this date, and you can put that in the message, and it's all there, right? It's out. So when we're selecting responses as well, this is, we'll go through and kind of go through step by step at this point. So we've already done the questions. We just have one question. We want to click on responses, accepting responses. So you can turn forms on or off, depending on how, what kind of form it is and when you want that to be turned on and off. We use forms on a time-sensitive basis all the time. So you can turn the form off or on. And if it's a form that's reused again and again, maybe it's that registration form and you use it every year, or it's a field trip form that you use every time, you might not want that on all the time, because then kids could be filling it out when it's not time for field trip or not time for registration. So you can just, turn this on or off. When we click on settings, we have a lot of options here. Hopefully you've done this before in a classroom as a teacher, right? You can make this a quiz. You can collect emails and responses. You can make it when somebody fills this out, the form out, that they get an email of their responses. We like to do that on certain forms as a school. So like during, registration, we want parents to know what they've registered their classes for. It's, they're selected their classes for. It's a big deal for students. And that way they have that information, and I can put on when requested. So they have that. You can response editing. Obviously, if you're doing a quiz, some of these options go away, because you don't want kids to be able to answer or edit their questions after on a quiz that you've put together, because then you're opening it up for, cheating or plagiarism or whatever. You can require or limit this to just people within your organization. So I don't usually do that, just because sometimes people are on their phone and it's a teacher and they need to fill out some information, and they're not linked to the school account yet. So I put that there. Excuse me. Oh, so then you can limit to one response. If I really want to kind of fine tune the data, I always limit it to one response. And then the presentation right here, you can show a progress bar. You can shuffle the questions. You can do a confirmation message. And this is that message that they get at the end of the Google form. So you can do a big thank you note. You could do, hey, thank you for filling out this Google form. We appreciate the time that you took today. And it's a great way, right, to kind of just build that customer service or that relationship with the families. This is obviously turned off. And the results, right, we may be able to share results with people. And then autosave, I usually keep autosave on. This is a tool that they added, year and a half ago, which is something that we've been asking for a long time as educators, is if a student gets up to go to the bathroom in the middle of a form, it will save this for them, and they can just go back where they started, where they left off, instead of having to go to do the whole form again, which was really, really frustrating. So I'm super glad that Google put that together. So you'll have your form defaults, collect email addresses by default. I think it's always good to collect email addresses with those. And so these are the settings page. And as you go into a quiz, these settings change, right? So you can give them the score right after they're done. You can do locked mode, missed questions, correct answers, point values. You go in and change all of this information. So when we talk about building the quizzes in the if, this, and that, we're going to go back to the form and walk through, kind of do that breakdown of the choices. So when we go to questions here, option 1 will just be section 2. And I'm doing this here so you can physically see what this looks like when somebody answers this. So when I go down here, we want to go to section based off of answer. So I actually haven't created these sections, right? So I actually need to create a new section. So we go down to add section. We're going to add another one. So section 2, you'll see here, I want them to jump to section 2. And then if they select this one, I want them to go to section 3. So on the front end, when a student answers this one, they go here. When they answer this one, they go here. Now, What does this look like for you as a teacher, right? There are so many things that you can do. You can do breakout rooms here, right? If students submit the wrong answer, they go to a different room and they have to go back and work through a problem back around to get to the virtual breakout room. So if they get the right code, they unlock the next section or the next box, and then they have to go through, right? And you only allow them to answer each one once. So they can't just go back and click A, B, C, or D. They go to the next section and they have to rework all of those numbers or those locks or whatever task that you're having them do virtually, or even in the classroom to unlock that next box. So you can also do this as a get to know you game, right? You're looking for students. So you find a student that has blonde hair and then it takes you down a different pathway. So not everybody's looking through the student with, blonde hair, or the student that was born out of state, or, the student that has, knows how to ride a unicycle, whatever. You could break this down into a lot of different activities to gather that information. It's a really fun way to play get to know you games. We've done that. I've done that as a teacher, right? So you can also do that by just not sending kids to different sections, but randomizing the questions so not every student form looks the same as they're in this thing. So it's Google Forms. I'm gonna grab a little bit of information here on how you want to finish this off when you share these. So that's the actual Google form itself. Once you're finished, you have some options up here. You can add specific things to Google Forms based on their answer and what that looks like. So in Certify 'em is a plugin that works with forms and sheets that will send out certification sheets. Autocrat does a very similar thing, and I'm going to walk you through Autocrat and how we do an Autocrat gift, or not a gift certificate, but a certificate or a badge in Autocrat. I'll probably separate this out in a different video because I think this is a part that people have a lot of questions for. But you can see the puzzle piece up here means that I have, I'm going to shrink this down and move my screen over a little bit. So there we go. This is the plugins that I have, right? Connected with forms here. This is my palette. I have the option to change colors. And again, we can change fonts depending on, how you set up your form, which is a great way to use there. This is, you can view it, right? As the creator, you can actually click on the eyeball and it'll show you what the form looks like if you send this out. It'll have the section here. It's tracking everything. To edit that, you would just click on the pencil down on the bottom again. You can undo or move forward. Here you have your types of questions and how you want to do things. So you can add a question here. You can import questions that you have from another document. And when I click on import here, it would just pull from, another Google form that I have. So if I've created, and you can see all of these that I've created, there's hundreds of them that I have access to from other teachers, different things like that. I can add a title and a description. I can add images. I can add videos. Again, I think adding videos is great. You can actually add audio clips from Moat is another plugin that you can use. It'll allow you to record things, and then students can also give audio responses back in that, and it automatically links right there in the Google form, which is a fantastic tool. And then you've got your sections here. So starting blank from forms, I'm actually going to end here, and I'm going to send you over to the video where we just go into Autocrat certificates and badges, and it'll be linked in the description here. I'm not going to connect it here because I think it'll actually be better if we do it over there. If you're here, it's most likely because you're an educator. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm glad that you're here. Got to figure out the best time that works for everybody. I know it's in the middle of the summer when I'm doing this, and so 7 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday might not work well for everybody. So during the school year, maybe we'll switch it to a Saturday morning or a Friday night or something like that. But I appreciate you so much for what you do for kids on a daily basis. Again, I've said this before, but I have 7 kids in public education, and my kids are better because of educators like you and like the educators that they currently have. Hope you have a great weekend, whether you're watching this on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. See you later.